So you've been binding books for a while and mastered cased bindings, and you're wondering how to take it to the next level. For an upgrade, I recommend replacing the tipped-on folio end paper with a sewn-on end paper, giving a stronger board attachment. But wait, there's more. The obvious choice for a sewn-on end paper is the classic made end paper. Today I'll demonstrate a modern take on this classic, the flexible made end paper. And because I get so many questions about it, I'll use a waste sheet and show tearing it out before putting down the paste downs. But what is the classic made end paper? It's when a folio of decorative or coloured paper is laminated to a folio of white paper, and the sewing is done through the folio of white, and the decorative paper is pasted down to the board. The advantages of this end paper are that you don't have the sewing showing between the paste down and the fly leaf. It hides the messy back of hand decorated papers like marbled paper, and you avoid contrasts between the recto and verso of facing leaves. One downside of the classic made end paper is that the laminated leaf can be rather rigid, and for this reason it's often called the stiff leaf. Someone in relatively recent times thought maybe the entire leaf doesn't need to be laminated. I'll just do a wide tip at the spine fold and tip the fore-edges together. The stiff leaf is now hollow and more flexible, and unless you're looking for it, you'll never know this leaf is hollow. I start by folding 2 folios of marbled paper and 4 folios of white. The second 2 whites will add the waste sheet. To make sure there's very good adhesion between the marbled paper and the whites, I'll apply adhesive along the tip line to all 4 folios. I'm using straight PVA to provide a fast and very strong connection. I'm also making the tip fairly wide, maybe 6mm or 1/4 of an inch. I want to keep the marbled patterns going the same way in the front and back of the book with the comb direction going down, so I need to keep track of this. I'll mark the front and back lightly on the outside of the marbled papers. After 10 minutes, once this is tacked well, I fold the outer leaf of white around to the outside, and this is the waste sheet, and I'll mark the outside of the waste sheet back and front also. Sewing this end paper to the book block adds strength. The sewing is done through the white folio. Here is where adding the waste has another advantage. Without the waste, the sewing would be through a single folio, which is not ideal strength-wise. I often add another folio of white inside the first to add even more strength to the fold, and add some blank leaves at the front and back, which can be good. Pre-punching the sewing holes, you need to be careful as you don't want to make the holes into the marbled paper. Instead of punching through the folio of white at an angle of 45 degrees, I punch holes almost vertical, and I punch them ever so slightly away from the fold, away from the marbled paper. For one of the end papers, you'll need to use the other side of the punching template to keep the marbled sheet vertical. Now the book block can be sewn starting and finishing with the end papers. In some of my videos you'll see me leave a long tail at the start and end and add the end papers later. I get asked what the technical reason is for doing this. It's actually an organisational issue. I just didn't have the end papers ready when I was ready to sew the book block. It's easier to just sew them with the sections in one go. It is a bit harder to find the pre-punched holes for the end papers because of the issue with avoiding piercing the marbled paper. I've been searching for some history about this technique. I learnt it from Peter Verheyen, and Peter said it was one of those things he was taught when he was young. Last year, I'm sure I read an article where it mentioned a famous binder using the technique in the second half of the 20th century, but I didn't take a note and I haven't been able to find it again. If I find anything, I'll put it in the video description. If you know of anything, put it in the comments. Once the book block is sewn, I'll tip the first and last sections on and the end papers to the outer sections. I get asked if this restricts the opening of these pages, and the answer is yes. but historically books regularly fail at the spine at these points, and doing this tipping reduces this failure. But the next step up would be to use a loose guard, which provides the connection between the sections, but avoiding the restriction. I'll demonstrate loose guards in a future video. Now I've reached final assembly, or casing in. By now the waste sheets have served their purpose and protected the book during the remaining of the forwarding processes. They're much more useful in leather bookbinding. But now it's time to remove them, which is easily done by pulling them up and away from the book at one end, and the paper should tear cleanly along the spine fold. If there are any ragged little pieces of paper left, these can be removed with some tweezers. Now the book is cased in using whatever your favourite method is. The final step is to tip the marbled paper and the white leaves together to make the flexible made leaf. Let that dry under some light weight and with some baking paper protecting the rest of the book from moisture. Now the book is complete. Your cased binding is now even stronger. Made with quality paper and covering material, a rounded and back cased binding should last a couple hundred years. With this upgrade, it should last even longer. I hope this inspires you to take your rounded and backed cased binding to the next level. Now I think about it, you can add this end paper to many structures, not just this one. As always, I really appreciate you hitting the big thumbs up button. If you're able and want to, you can support the making of more videos like this through Patreon or with a one-off contribution, and the details are in the description below. If you want to be notified of my future videos, please hit the subscribe button and select the notification bell. Until next time, cheerio!